Okay, number one Marmaduke fan here. I think this is take 4 or 5. So first my battery died, and then I charged it and tried to do a take two, but then Apple just decided, no, you hit record. We don't think you hit record. We just lost it in cyberspace. And then I tried take three, and then no, I have to go. I'm running out of time. I didn't plan on this. So then I had to wait a few days, recollect my thoughts. I was so mad, and now we're back with our fourth try at trying to do Sonic Select Book 7. The Sonic Select books collect the Archie Sonic comics. Most of them have a theme. So the theme of Book 7 is Princess Sally, who I think is one of the best characters out of the Sad AM and Archie comics run. I feel like of all of the characters from that era, Princess Sally would be the most worth bringing into the IDW run if they could somehow wangle that. But I don't know. I wouldn't want them to shoehorn in a bunch of old characters just because older fans would like it. But I would. I think I've seen that some of the talent on the IDW comics are totally open to including some of those characters if that can be wangled legally. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about the character of Princess Sally. One dimension of her is that she's kind of just the stable, competent leader girl, which means that she doesn't make as many dumb mistakes as Sonic does, right? So if Sonic is the dashing young hero who hot dogs and goes out on his own and gets into trouble because of that, Sally just kind of plans things out, and she's careful, and she's trying not to make mistakes, right? So on one dimension, it's a little harder to write a story about her. On the other hand, she's a cool princess, and I see the princess as being something like the samurai or the cowboy or the knight, where if you can put the word princess before a character's name, they sort of instantly gain cred in the mind of a child. Like, princesses are clearly just as kick-ass as knights and samurai and cowboys, right? That's just something. What it would be? Okay, they work as a viewpoint character, especially for a little girl. So if Sonic is a viewpoint character for a little boy, Princess Sally is a viewpoint character for a little girl. And at the same time, girls can like samurais and ninjas and cowboys, and boys can like princesses, because it's a type of character that communicates kick-ass good guy to you. And that's something that that Sally is. The second thing I thought of while reading Sonic Select Book 7 is, as I've read more of the Archie comics, it's a little bit like Sonic got to have a long, weird career, similar to some of the traditional superheroes, where characters like Superman and Batman had their weird early phase, and then they had their goofy, silly Silver Age phase, and then they had a little bit more of a serious Bronze Age phase, and then that leads up into the modern age. And I thought a lot about why I gave up on modern comics while reading Sonic Select Book 7, because in the modern age, the history becomes so dense. It's almost like it becomes a barrier to new entry. Like, all of those earlier eras were made basically for a little kid at the grocery store with 75 cents. And they weren't worried about building up this big, complex universe. Once we get into the modern age, there's both it's a pro and con. The pro is that you have these characters with this great, rich history that's so fascinating and people are interested in it. And the con is that you have these characters with this rich, dense history. It's almost like they're too complicated to be children's stories anymore, and they're too childlike to be taken seriously as adult literature. What I really love about Sonic Select Book 7 is one story especially, Archie Sonic number 222. It's one of the best examples I've seen of trying to inherit one of these weird characters with a complex history and do something productive with them. So I like to think an interesting thought experiment would be, if there's a character like Spider-Man or Batman or Superman that you like, and you got the chance to write their book, what would you do with a character like that, where they've had such a long history? Almost every Superman story that can be told has been told. One of the worst things I think you can do is basically just use it as an opportunity to, use the character to say whatever selfish message you want to say. And one of the best things I think you can do is maybe try to like redeem or just look back on that history, look at the pros and the cons, and try to say something positive about the character. So one of the most famous examples, I think, is how Spider-Man and Mary Jane's marriage got erased in One More Day. I hate that. What that does is that's an example of a comic book company saying, well, to keep Spider-Man interesting, we have to keep him young and single, right? So let's just forget about this marriage and get him back to being a young and single man. What was lost when that happened was the character progressing. So go back to the Golden Age, it's very childlike, will Lois Lane and will Superman ever get married? Oh, maybe they will this time, kids. And Sonic and Sally had that kind of relationship in the Sonic cartoon. And at the end of the cartoon, they get together, right? So it kind of ends on a nice little moment. Will they, won't they? The answer is they will. And that feels like progress. It feels like we're moving towards an endpoint. However, if you're stretching a comic over the course of 40 or 50 or 100 years, the temptation is to stretch that out forever. And I kind of feel like people have gotten sick of that. And what people have started to become attracted to is the idea of these characters actually having some growth. We want to see Superman become a father because that's a next logical step for someone who's had his little moment of tete-a-tete, will they, won't they, with Lois Lane. We want to see Peter Parker become married and become a father because it gets old watching Peter Parker bounce around from girlfriend to girlfriend for 50 years. So like those characters, Sonic had a long period of will he, won't he with Sally. So throughout the cartoon era, will they, won't they, and then at the end of the cartoon, they're together. Now, the Archie comics, for the sake of drama, decides to break them up and add more tension to it. So Geoffrey St. John, the problem with Geoffrey St. John is every time I see him, I just think it looks like someone thought, what if we put Pepe Le Pew into the Sonic the Hedgehog universe? But Geoffrey St. John was supposed to be a better romantic rival than Antoine. So if Sonic is the Chad, Antoine was sort of the virgin trying to get Sally to pay attention to him. But Antoine is clearly the poor little simp boy compared to the absolute alpha male Sonic. Antoine actually does have some moments of cool badassery and heroism, but he's not really that competitive with Sonic. So Geoffrey St. John, the skunk, he's supposed to be a little bit more suave and debonair, a little bit more dangerous and mysterious, and this presses all the right buttons for Princess Sally. Okay. One problem with this is whereas the cartoon sort of left us with Sonic and Sally, they had this long period of not being sure what they felt for each other. Now at the end, we're going to get them together. Too bad. Back to drama. This era, I kind of call this sort of a Knuckles the Echidna. Oh, what's the number? Number 26. So after the cartoon ends, I think several writers, but most notably Ken Penders, started innovating their own kind of like backstory and world building and universe, right? So it's sort of like the comic starts taking on its own life beyond the cartoon. I notice a lot of recurring themes, like they discover they have their long lost brother, or their mother is still alive, or Sonic's parents are still alive, and there's this drama. Why didn't you tell me if you knew? Right. So if the cartoon era is sort of like the golden age, like very innocent, very childlike, very adventure focused. The Ken Penders post-cartoon era is a little bit more like the late Silver Age or the Bronze Age. We're starting to introduce some more soap opera kinds of dilemmas. We're starting to introduce some adult emotions and anger and conflict between the heroic characters into it. And this is sort of a pro and a con. The pro is I think that these animal characters do have human emotions and human experiences. I think that's one of the charms of the cartoon, is they react to an evil scientist taking over their homes in a very identifiable way. They feel sad about being separated from their family. The con is that the human drama and the soap opera can actually sort of take over the fun little animal adventure side of it. So it gradually becomes more and more complex. So X-Men starts out as kind of like a fun little four guy heroes going on adventure comic. In the 90s, X-Men is famous for having like a wide cast of characters and lots of love triangles and dramas and change ups. It got more complicated and more appealing to a teenage audience, but started to lose maybe some of that simplistic charm of the earlier eras. Now, when you get into the modern era, what the heck do you do? Like, is anybody going to the only people who know all of this history are the super nerds, and will the kids care about it even if you explain all the history? So Sonic the Hedgehog number 222, this is one of my favorite comics of all time that I've read, because it's like they're trying to heal something. So Sonic and Sally were together. That felt like a good moment. The comic drove them apart to create more drama. So Sonic the Hedgehog 222 gets them back together. But as it gets them back together, it's sort of like it acknowledges this weird long history of the Archie comics, but doesn't let the weird long history of the Archie comics distract from just telling like a really sweet little story about two like a man and a woman with a history and a breakup, realizing that kind of like having an adult conversation and getting past their earlier problems. So it starts off with Sally talking with Monkey Kong about her regrets breaking up with Sonic. Both of them, they're planning their like first date in years, and both of them kind of like get nervous about it. They want it to be perfect. Both of them get advice from like a parental figure that, don't overthink it. Just be yourself and think things are going to be okay. There's some nice little moments like people bugging them at the restaurant about, things going on with the war with Robotnik, like they can never get a night off. And then they worked on Amy Rose into the comic in a really sweet way. So Amy Rose is from the video games, and she's more part of the modern cast of Sonic, where the idea is she's this cute little girl who has a crush on Sonic and chases him around. That's actually kind of led people to like engage in ship wars, where some people like Sonic with Amy and some people like Sonic with Sally more. But this did a really neat thing where Amy's she's crushing on Sonic, but she's kind of mature about it. So she chases off the paparazzi who are bugging them and just wishes them well and tells them to go have a good time tonight. And her quote is, "Sonic will be mine one day. Until then, I just want him to be happy." And right now he's happy with Sally. So I like this because it's acknowledging like how Amy is portrayed in the games and not making her into like a yandere crazy psycho girl, right? So for all of you Son Amy shippers, I get it. Amy's a fun character. However, if you're as an example of trying to work her into this pre-existing universe, this is really good writing, because in the cartoon universe, Sonic and Sally are sort of meant to be throughout most of the story, and then Amy's the one who's introduced as a new character into this universe. This is a very, very clever way of letting Amy fit into this dynamic without Amy becoming like this caustic, nasty, like stalker girl. So Sonic and Sally just have like a straightforward conversation about like their weird history with the freedom fighters and the breakups and the other boyfriend and the girlfriend. And they basically just sort of like work out the previous issue like two adults actually communicating what the problem is and how they feel about each other. And then they're back together at the end of it. So this was I think I reviewed these out of order. So this is the last Sonic Select book that my that number one Sonic fan loaned to me. The Archie comics are really fun but weird. And a lot of the mainstream superheroes have also had weird eras of their history. Peter Parker had the weird clone saga. Batman and Superman had their weird Silver Age days where it was like, oh, it's rainbow kryptonite. It makes Superman into anti-Superman, right? Which is part of the fun. Part of the fun of comics is because lots of people are writing stories about these characters. You get some really good stories, you get some bad groaners, and you get a few just weird off the wall ones. What really stood out to me about Sonic the Hedgehog number 222 is trying to address something fans were upset about, like splitting up the characters who you wanted to see together, and not ignoring the history of the comic, but sort of making the history and the weird relationships and dramas secondary to moving the characters forward in time. I think if you want a story to have maybe more than just like a little fun adventure for kids appeal, you have to think about death and you have to think about sex. Even in children's literature, you have to think about how to portray this. If death isn't real and sex isn't real, it's not going to have any human drama or human emotion to it. Bugs Bunny cartoons, no one cares about Bugs Bunny's biography. No one cares about Bugs Bunny's marriage life. The appeal of Bugs Bunny cartoons is the silly antics and watching the bad guy try to trap Bugs Bunny and have an anvil drop on their heads. In a story where there's supposed to be a beginning, middle, and end, then we expect to see something like death, or the characters coping with death and the characters progressing in their lives. If there's romance, we expect to see an answer to the question, will they, won't they? If they won't, then break them up and have them both move on in their lives and don't rehash that again. If they will, get them together, get them married, first comes love, first comes marriage, then comes babies and a baby carriage. And what's really sweet is even in children's literature, you can do that without depicting sex or without depicting death. So I don't think they were allowed to have death in the cartoon. Like the animals got roboticized, and they hoped that if they could beat Robotnik, they could de-roboticize the animals and be reunited with their family members, right? But during the course of the cartoon, they still mourned the loss of their family. They still felt sadness and kind of despair over what Robotnik had taken from them. So I think the heart of good children's literature is finding that balance, that right balance between talking about the serious theme that matters to children and adults and not letting that serious theme distract from the heart of the book, which is fun adventures of good versus evil. So Sonic Select Book 7, really good book overall. Sally's a strong character, and I think that little girl readers would get a kick out of her. So that's it. I'm no more Marmaduke fan. I love you guys. Catch you later.